welcome you all to the Tenderloin Museum. And you know, it's not a dream, it really exists. I brought Joaquin Torres and Amy Cohen out from the mayor's office a couple weeks ago, and I asked, they were seeing how the work was in progress, and I said, Joaquin, because Joaquin's a very honest person, I wanted his honest assessment. Joaquin, what do you think? And he said, you know, I just can't believe it actually is going to happen. and that is a common thing. And and I want to say right at the outset, two people who are not with us today, who I just want to acknowledge, because without their infused spirit and their legacy, I don't think this museum would be here. One, of course, is Leroy Looper, whose picture appears there. Many of you know that Leroy was a longtime mentor of mine. Chris Tiedemann, who's here, and myself were two Hastings law students in the fall of 1979, and we met with Leroy in his office right next door at the Cadillac. And he was selling us on this idea that Tenderloin could be improved and that we should help him. And here we're still doing it. So it's quite a tribute to Leroy. The other person is Ramesh Patel, whose wedding photo from 1975 is here, the first Indian wedding at the Indian Cultural Center on Ellis. And Ramesh meant so much to my relationship with him because he opened the door to the Indian American SRO community, which, if you look at the donor board, were major donors for this museum. And when people say to me, who funded this museum? I mean, how did it come about? Well, it's people who care about the Tenderloin. We didn't get any philanthropists to contribute. The people who fund the Jazz Center, the MoMA, 600 million there, 800 million, whatever it is, we couldn't get the philanthropists. We got the people who really cared about the Tenderloin, many of whom are Indian American SRO owners like Deepak Patel, Sam Patel, so many, you could just list the name, there's a whole list you can see on the donor board. You know, it's really the owners of the Tenderloin, people like Paul Boschetti, who's been my friend for 30 years, and Debbie O'Mosser, who I've worked for 20 years, who dug into their pockets and said, we believe in this neighborhood, we believe in its legacy, and we're going to fund this museum. And that's how it happened. So I want to thank all of those who donated and all of the people who really have believed in us when people thought this is never going to happen. So thank you all. I go to a lot of these events, and you know, you can have people going on and on thanking every person, and obviously everyone here was invited because most of you gave some support outside of the media, which also was very supportive, actually. The media was great. You all deserve thanks. So please don't associate me not mentioning a certain person by name as not being recognizing that we do appreciate and thanks. But there's some people and institutions I really have to call out today. When we hear about pro bono assistance, it could often mean coming out on a Saturday and having your staff paint, or in the case of the Perkins & Will architecture firm, it can mean working 6 years on a project. 6.5. 6.5. And, you know, I'll never forget, you know, I feel like with some of these folks like Seth Meisler of Perkins & Will, it's kind of like the scene in The Wizard of Oz when Dorothy is saying goodbye to the Tin Man and the Scarecrow and all the people who have been through much. Seth and I have been through 6 years of working on this museum. And Perkins & Will's contribution, the number of architects, the designs, just incredible. So I do want to call out Seth and Perkins & Will for special recognition. And I was going to get to that. I didn't forget that. And there was a series of architects who were working with Seth, and the one who drew the short straw and had to do it during the construction period was Yusuke Matsushita. And he had to do all the real stressful work. So you see, Yusuke, thank you so much. And then, of course, we had to have someone supervise construction. And everyone knows contractor stories, and all, people have the horror stories, whether on their house or their apartment, wherever they've worked. And you go to a party, everyone has their story. We don't have that story because we used WebCore. And Brad Denny, Eric Biscow, and John Evans, and I want to just acknowledge them, are they in the back there? You cannot believe the professionalism, the quality. Eric was sending me emails multiple times, 7 days a week. The organization of this project could never happen without WebCore's pro bono support and with the dedication far beyond the call of duty of those 3 individuals. So I really want to call them out and thank them. Is Rodrigo Santos here? I guess he thought he was going to make it, but his engineering firm did all the engineering for free. I asked Rodrigo if he'd give us a good price on the engineering. He said, I'm not going to give you a good price. I'm doing it for free. Wow. And they did. Wow. And then our favorite designer is Rob Duncan here. I saw Rob earlier, somewhere in the distance. I know Rob is here. But Rob, all the great designs, all the great retail stuff was all designed by Rob. And Rob would occasionally ask us for a very small check. It nowhere near covered his cost. But he did the museum sign for Mucho, and he's got an ongoing relationship with museums. So we got the elite international branding firm to do this Tenderloin Museum. Thank you, Rob. I also want to thank our great hero, my hero, John Burton, for coming. Great hero of the Tenderloin. John and I took a driving tour back in like 2010 where he pointed out to me all the places he used to gamble and drink in the Tenderloin. And he remembered them. You know. And also want to thank Tom Huey and Ron Allen of DBI for going far beyond the call of duty. I don't know where Tom and Rob, right here. And thank you so much, both of you. So again, I'm not everyone else, thank you as well, but I want to get to the presentation, and the person really, I go to a lot of these things, and a lot of things happen during a mayoral administration that happen on the mayor's watch, and they get credit. This is not something that happened on Mayor Ed Lee's watch. This is something that happened because of Mayor Ed Lee, and that's a fact. Yeah. People used to say to me, well, who supports this museum? And I could immediately shut off any doubts. I could say, well, our biggest supporter is Mayor Lee. Mayor Lee did a fundraiser for us, or tried to convince people to give us money in 2011. He's been with us the entire time, and he believes in the Tenderloin. And what's interesting is all of us you see here were in the Tenderloin, including Mayor Lee in the early 80s. We all have a long history. But what I learned in researching my book and for this museum is that mayors really haven't done very much for the Tenderloin in its history. They talk a good game. They all love the Tenderloin. They come down for ribbon cuttings. They give a lot to nonprofit housing, which is good. But when it comes to economic development, we've gotten nowhere near other neighborhoods. We've gotten the short end of the stick for 50 years, actually, until we got incredibly lucky and Ed Lee became mayor. And so I have to say that when you look at the help we got from the mayor's office, from Steve Kawa, who never comes to an event. Where is Steve? And that says more to me than anything. Steve and John Burton are both here, that Steve came to this event, and the support Steve gave to us, Todd Rufo, of course, Amy Cohen, Joaquin, and someone who gave as much help as anyone who's in DC on vacation, Jeremy Hallisey. And my God, I hope Jeremy can somehow, wish we had a closed circuit so Jeremy can know all the help he gave us. But that all comes, they're all having mayor's something in their title. That doesn't happen if you don't have a mayor who is saying, I want all of you staff to help the Tenderloin. And Ed Lee did that. So without further, Mayor, thank you very much.
Well, Randy, thank you for that introduction. So this is what a Sizzler's restaurant looks like. You got to know that part of the history in order to appreciate that line. We certainly do, and those who have been in the Tenderloin for many years serving the residents here, I think you're all to be congratulated. I know there's an abundant list of people to thank, and I joined that list that you have, but I also want to acknowledge those that maybe don't have the big name, but are the small business owners within 2 or 3 blocks from here that said, we want this to happen. Every police officer that has served this district wanted this to happen. Firefighters who come through here wanted this to happen. Nurses, I got a lot of nurses and medical health professionals wanted something here to happen. And it shouldn't surprise all of you that when it comes to the Tenderloin, it comes to revitalizing areas like Central Market and historically depressed areas, it takes not only the great ground leadership that Randy has provided for many years. And you've got to give Randy a huge, huge applause here. Because talk about someone who believes. I mean, if I had anything to do with it, it was only because he was there to say, Ed, you got to really, this is our history. This is why we came to study law and do civil rights and work in the community. It's because of communities like this. No different than the way I feel about Chinatown and North Beach and some of the other places that we've worked historically together. And we did a lot of work together on that. But I also say, beyond kind of taking care of our own roots and the people that we believed in and giving them the level of respect in this district, I enjoy working with all of the people you just named. You know, the residential hotel owners, we're working together now, today, to house what is on the front pages, homeless population. And they're doing a terrific job, and they're freeing up master leasing with us, as many units as they can. They find us to be even more incredible partners with them on these very challenging populations that have a lot of issues. And they are centered in Central Market and the Tenderloin, and we wanted to help them. But I also wanted to say, too, that in addition to them and the volunteers, there's just an incredible number of people that go unnamed that wanted this to happen. And also, I just want to give another shout out to a group of people that continue, I think, to help me revitalize all of San Francisco, but particularly the most challenging, and that's artists. You know, this museum is part of art. And it doesn't surprise me that the museum is the idea that has now come forward to attract investor confidence, to bring people together. And I'm looking at Carrie Shulman, Grants for the Arts, and certainly Naomi, as city administrator, who is in my previous role and trying to figure out with Joaquin and Amy and others of Invest in Neighborhoods, how we continue to work with the arts to revitalize and bring forth life. Because when you got nothing, you still got art. You still got your character. You got a history you can talk about. And so when we had all those meetings at the wonderful Hastings College, and they've been a great community partner here as well, it was easy to kind of tell those stories about what we needed to do to get others involved. And that's why I'm not surprised that the whole idea of explaining Uptown Tenderloin in a museum fashion has been so attractive, so sustainable, that it is part of a larger thing that is happening in all of our revitalization, particularly in the Tenderloin area. And we've celebrated those milestones on Turk and on Mason, and there's more and more to come. But there's investor confidence that's also there. There will be companies that will, I think, appreciate this even more. That's why there's Neighbor Nest that's created for low-income families that are part of the technology's contribution. There'll be more of that as the CBAs get even more life into them, the community benefit agreements, and all the technology employees there. They'll not just go down Larkin Street looking for the Vietnamese sandwich. They'll go to the chairman, they'll go to Bodega Bistro, they'll say, well, where's this museum? They'll walk a few blocks and they'll discover that, and hopefully they'll get into the jazz at Cadillac Hotel again, and then they'll join Cecil and Janice more than Sundays to do good work, as 400 mayors discovered in one of their most enlightening sessions ever, to join our Glide Memorial in that session. So there is, to say, a lot of things happening, and it's just a matter of us linking it up, talking about it, introducing more people to it. When we get the lighting down with Harlan's leadership on the lighting, those pathways are going to be even better lit. You already see Bodecker Park inviting so many people, doing all of the things that you want our parks to reflect. You see the Millerick Academy and the 826 Valencia, that's going to sprout. You see Humphrey Slocum ice cream in the middle of the Tenderloin coming. And I can't wait for the day we serve free ice cream to people in the Tenderloin. They deserve it. That'll be lots of fun. So there's a lot of good things happening, and I think this is a moment to attribute all of the spirit of the people that have come here to make this happen. The engineers, of course, WebCore, there's a reason why they're the most successful and good, reputable contractor in the city. They'll build as big of the downtown buildings, but they'll also help rehab and lead with many other sub-vendors this incredible museum. I can't wait when they start counting the numbers of people that come through here, Randy.
We certainly
Because as they come through here, they'll also go to all the other shops that they have yet to be exposed to. Yet this is part of Uptown Tenderloin. It is part of the story. They'll have the history to arm themselves with, so they'll know what they're looking at and appreciate this entire part of our city that now is going to become an even bigger contributor. They have contributed. We just haven't recognized it. And I know that Mohammed and others, we've struggled in our other capacities as Public Works to allow pathways for more people to come here. We'll continue doing that. But all the agencies are working together now, I think in a much better rhythm, because we appreciate the investments that people are making here, because this is going to cause even more investments, and ultimately, the investments in people. That's what we want to always see, is that it ends with the investment in people, and you're going to see much more of that from our administration. The Tenderloin is going to be a great story, but so is Turk Street, around Bodega, Central Market. There'll just be that much more investment by people who want to create an even better place and time for each other to celebrate and to have this sharing economy share it for a lot more people. So thank you for this milestone, but I am excited to see this cause even more excitement in this entire community. And Randy, your leadership, your just unfettered commitment to this has brought us here. So I want to say personally, thank you for your entire history.
I do want to mention that Hammond Lou is sitting in the third row, and he and Tenderloin Housing Clinic, which is my paid job, we're opening an art gallery for Tenderloin, to market Tenderloin art made by Tenderloin residents for art, which will open beginning in September, just half block down at 236 Leavenworth Street, called Space 236. And I also want to acknowledge, so many people have said to me, God, who did this museum? It's so great. So if you need someone to do a museum for you, Steve Wearsma of West Office Exhibition Design is right there, and give him your card and he'll get a hold of you. So I'm very honored by the presence, like I say, we have the history on the walls and we have the history sitting here in the presence of Reverend Cecil Williams. And just one thing I must say about Reverend Williams, until I started researching about the history of the Tenderloin, I knew Reverend Williams, I've been in the Tenderloin. I didn't know that when he got to Glide in 1963, there were only 35 families as members. And he had a remarkable organizing strategy. I don't think anyone would have thought of it. He said, I think we're going to build our base by hiring ministers to organize queer youth who have no money. That's what he did. He led the first real powerful grassroots queer organizing in the United States. How many people here knew that? Those who read my book. I don't think anyone else knew that. So, the legacy of Cecil Williams and Glide is so much more powerful than what we know in the Tenderloin. So we were so glad you were able to speak. And do you want to say a few words, Reverend C. Williams?
By all means, by all means.
Here we go. I can just give you this.
I can sit down. Okay. Greetings, everybody. Greetings. Thank you, Mayor Lee, and thank you, Randy Shaw. Thank you, the people who put their time and effort and money in this facility. This is, without any doubt, one of the most important things that's happened in the city and county of San Francisco. No matter what you look, how you look at it and how you see it, this place certainly mirrors something that is vital and will continue for years and years and years to come. But having said that, Janice Mercatani, I could not have done, you hear people say, well, I could not have done it without Well, I'm telling the truth. I could not have done it without Dennis Mercatone. In fact, she did it before I did it. We did a game, sort of like, how shall we approach the situation? What you don't know, and I'm going to tell you about today, is this. Every activist, every radical group that came to San Francisco, we had something to do with them in what they did while they were in this city. You name it. We saw at nighttime things that you could probably only read or see on television today. Because we felt very strongly that the voice of those folks who came through San Francisco, that voice needed to be heard. But we never gave in to their philosophy. We had a philosophy and a theology and a commitment and a love and an unconditional love that was very pervasive. I'm telling you, there were moments where things were getting pretty tight at times, but the activists who came through here. Secondly, we had also something that was very important, and that was to begin to relate closely and openly with gay, lesbian groups. We had ways by which we could find ways in this community, large pockets of gays and lesbians. And that was very important. And so we identified with whatever the movement was, whether it was, you just named it. We responded with the gay and lesbian community. The third thing is, I don't know whether you know it or not, but we now have 10,000 volunteers who come through GLIDE every year, you see. And that's just something that's very critical. And last but not least, I just think you need to know this. There's no doubt about it. Right in a block from where we're located are large groups of African Americans. There's a large number of African Americans in the Tenderloin, large number. And some of them may have problems or confront issues, but they're here, they're ours, and we're theirs. We will always be theirs, and they will be ours, always. And I just want to again say, Janice Mercatone, I don't know what I would do if it were not for you.
Reverend Williams just talked about all the people who were at GLIDE. Well, the Tenderloin Housing Clinic opened its first office on February 1st, 1980. At GLIDE, the rent was $70 a month. I remember you raised it to $75 after a year. And we said, we can't afford that. And right next door to us was the Vietnamese Youth Development Center, which started my relationship with To Do, who, you remember in the late 70s, early 80s, when we have some refugees, the Southeast Asian refugees after the Vietnam War, like To, came to the Tenderloin and started to transform the neighborhood. And I worked with To for 10 years in the Tenderloin before she went off and worked for Local 2, which, here Local 2, which is in the Tenderloin. But I just thought the coincidence, To, that you and I met in GLIDE is something else. So, To Do.
Being here just feel like so much coming home, although I never really left the Tenderloin. So I came just a little bit on personal perspective. I came to the Tenderloin when I was 18. I'm 56 now, and I'm still walking around in the Tenderloin. Drawing me to the Tenderloin was the Vietnamese Youth Development Center, where at that point was under the leadership of Lam Dung, and it was supported by Cecil William and Janice, and houses at the VYM at the Clyde Memorial Church, where we do a lot of community outreach. We provide after school. That I was one of those youth that benefit from the after school program, and later on become a community organizer, working with the Northern Market Planning Coalitions I think we have one of our first Southeast Asian housing committee in the city because of the diversity of the members who live in here, which is Vietnamese, Laotian, and Cambodian immigrant who came from as a result of the war. We do our best effort to really incorporate ourselves into the mainstream area where we learn about our right as a tenant, but also we want to learn about being part of the bigger picture of passing rent control. We have a lot of memories where we actually have our first picket line to protest one of the eviction, I think one of the building right here. But we also have some really sad moment where, I don't know if you remember, there was one young child who died at the building on Leavenworth Street, which is down the block, where the cause was that because there's a space between the floor and the elevator, and the child was too small.
270 Turk.
270 Turk, yes.
Yeah.
So those are sad memory, but as a community, we really overcome a lot of that. And I think the Vietnamese Youth Development Center today still exists and providing youth with a different focus, where with the technology, with the recreation that where growing up in poor, you may not have that opportunity, and they no longer apply, but they have grown up and now moving to locations on Eddy Street, I believe. So those are the stuff that we do. We also survive a lot of turmoil within our own Vietnamese community, and CISO and Clyde Church has always stood with us. And one other reverend that I think I have to mention is Reverend Wake, yes, thank you for reminding me, where our community was really going through a lot of turmoil about what's going on in our homeland, but because of the support of Clyde, we continue to be able to be there and providing the best service that we can, regardless whether or not you are supporting the Republican or you are supporting the effort of reunification of Vietnam today. So I'm here to really feel very much home, and thank you for all the work that everybody had done to continue to move the community forward. One more thing I have to mention is that because a lot of our members local too become a lot more self-sufficient as a result of getting work in the hotel, and the way that they be able to get work in the hotel because of the effort, I think you and Randy and the North of Market Planning Coalition, that through the effort, making sure that these hotels, when they build, that they hire the resident from this area. So that providing people, thank you. So some of our members have graduated from here and be able to buy their own home or be able to live somewhere better. I know a few of them get into affordable housing down on 3rd Street. So they have a much better life. So I think that's, the Tenderloin is a lot of memories to me, but a lot of struggle, but a lot of progress as well. Thank you.
And I should mention the Indian Cultural Center where Ramesh and Sue were married used to be the Waitresses Union. It's the largest waitresses union in the history of the United States, was on Ellis Street. We were a big union area. We still have a lot of unions based here. Many of you know Kathy Looper from her Friday concerts, and I've worked with Kathy since I've known her as long as Leroy, since 1980, and I knew Leroy in '79, and Kathy's the president of the board of Uptown Tenderloin. Her support on this whole project was obviously incredible. Every time, and we have our tours, we are having tours, which is really important to this museum because we want people to go out into the community and get to know the Tenderloin, so then they feel comfortable coming back and going to restaurants. We have Del Seymour here in the front row, Pam Coates, who'll be 2 of our tour guides. Kathy's also agreed to be a tour guide, so you can take a tour with Kathy tomorrow when we start them. But the first thing we always want to take them on the tour, the first time I take everyone, is the lobby of the Cadillac Hotel, and people are just blown away because a lot of people have negative images of SROs. They think they're tiny, cramped, seedy, and they walk into the Cadillac and they think, my good, well, this is an SRO? And it's because of Kathy, and she's a valuable friend, and just the great hero, unsung heroine of the Tenderloin. So, Kathy Looper.
Well, that was awfully sweet. It's nice to be in a room full of people who love the Tenderloin. I have to tell you, it's just really heartwarming to be here and to see this outpouring of support. When Leroy and I built the Sizzler in this very location, it failed because it was in isolation. There wasn't enough around it to draw people in just for a meal. So my pitch, which is, if anyone knows me, they know I just get to the point. Here's the point. We need your continued support, not just one-time support, but continued support. We need you to support every business. I need you to go into the theaters, to go out for dinner. If you have guests, bring them by the museum. And then go to one of our restaurants. Randy has done an incredible job of bringing investment into this community. And it's not just his job, it's our job. We have to do the same. We have to encourage people to come in and spend their dollars in our community, help support this community. And this museum is a great entryway for people to do that. So that's it. Bring your pocketbooks.
Just to continue on that theme, you know, because we don't have philanthropic support, we have to have a lot of retail sales, and we have all kinds of, Rob Duncan designed all kinds of items for sale, only sold in the museum, unique, you've never had an opportunity to buy them before, you can buy some today. There's all kinds of items that it does make money, and you know, getting people to come to the museum and pay the admission fee, and then to have them take the tours or the nighttime tours, which we also have on Thursday nights, you know, that really can help. So hopefully all of you who are excited about this and been inspired by the language of the talk by Reverend Williams and Mayor Lee and all of us in Todo, when you walk out here, you think, you know what, I actually am going to put it on Facebook. I'm going to tell all my friends, I'm going to go to Twitter, and I'm going to say, hey, you guys have to see the Tenderloin Museum. It's amazing. Because that's what we need you all to do. It's an organizing thing. We can't just have you walk away and say, well, that was fun. Okay, where am I getting lunch? And it's all kind of, you know, forgotten. And you know, I've told people the story how I'll be sitting down with some very wealthy people from Civic Heights or whatever, philanthropists, and when they're with me, they're so excited about giving to the museum, but we never end up getting the money. And it was explained to me that when they're with you, they're all excited. When they get back home, they're in a different environment. And it's suddenly like, wait, the Tenderloin? No, I'm going to give another check to MoMA because they only have 600 million or 800, whatever it's at. And you know, I mean, obviously we're working so hard to raise every dollar here in the Tenderloin. So think about that when you leave here, that you want to help us get people to come to the museum. So we have crowds, word of mouth, go on TripAdvisor, all the ways you guys know how to promote your own businesses and your own affairs. Help at the museum. That's the best way you can help. So with that, I want to thank everyone and announce that tonight, our opening night event at 6:30, Screaming Queens, Then and Now. We have a rare, extraordinarily rare appearance by both directors of that film, Screaming Queens. Susan, are you here, Susan Stryker, somewhere? Susan Stryker, who was on over there, Susan Stryker. Is that Martin with her? Is Martin here? No. Susan Stryker and Victor Fernandez, Victor, the co-director, will both be here, along with Tamara Ching and Veronica Fimbras, transgender activists, and I'll be on the panel as well to really, if you want to know the gay and lesbian history of San Francisco and where it began right here in the Tenderloin. And you can hear the story tonight. $10 covers the admission to the panel, free wine, and you can see in a more sedate setting all of the exhibits again. So see you all tonight and in the future. Thank you.